Let's dive into the discussions shaping the nation.
Corla. Minister, I want to raise with you an issue that has gone unaddressed for far too long in this House, a blatant discrimination built on the taxation regime, a discrimination targeted squarely at the citizens with no children in this country. I want to ask you plainly, is it acceptable for this government to oversee, implement and defend a taxation system that discriminates against people purely based on the fact that they do not have children? Every day in Ireland, those without children are treated as second-class citizens under the capital acquisitions tax regime, specifically in relation to inheritance tax. These individuals are prohibited by law from passing on the same value of their hard-earned, already taxed asset to loved ones as those without children, as those with children can. And why? Not because they've earned less, not because they have contributed less to society, but simply because they do not have children. In Budget 2025, Minister Chambers increased the threshold of Group A, B and C of inheritance tax brands, which may seem fair at looking at it, but the actuality is, considering what happened, if Group A, the parents with children, enjoy a larger tax-free inheritance without increase, the increases remain untouched for those without children. Let's imagine if the opposite had occurred, if Group A had been reduced to 40,000, Group B and C up to 400,000. We could picture the outrage on the streets of Ireland from those parents, and rightly so. But just because that would be deeply unfair. But the hypocrisy is when childless couples, citizens, face the reverse scenario, they're told to sit down, they're told to shut up and accept it, and that's it, that you're less deserving, that your relationship with your niece, your nephew, with siblings, with lifelong friends just simply don't count. Government response so far has centred around a minor threshold adjustment spread over time. But Minister, that does not reform, that does not justify, and that's certainly not equality. You can't fix a structural discrimination system with a few tweaks here and there of the job. So I say directly to you, Minister, is this equitable? That parents like yourself, Minister, with 2 children can leave up to €800,000 tax-free, where people like myself with no children, single persons, or people that cannot have children can leave 80,000 tax-free to loved ones. That's 10 times less. 10 times less, Minister. The system penalises the childless citizen of this country for the simple fact that they do not, or perhaps cannot, have children.
Minister.
Thank you, Deputy, and thank you for raising this matter. I know this is something that obviously impacts on a significant proportion of our population, and there's very different reasons why people may not have children, choose not to have children, can't have children, or in different scenarios where it doesn't happen. I suppose it is always the case, and it is always open to any individual or to group of people to make representations, be it prior to the budget, be it coming up to the budget, or any time of the year, to make representations to try and put forward changes to our taxation system, whether that's to inheritance tax or any other part of our tax system. And this is no different here, and I'm aware that there is a briefing due to take place, I think, next week on this particular matter, where many of the issues that you've outlined will be discussed and raised, and we as deputies have an opportunity to engage with and to listen to the various different challenges, the various different concerns and the issues that you've just outlined. And you know, in what you're saying, there's absolute merit. The relationship that a parent has with their child is so often very similar to the relationship that a person has with their niece, with their nephew, or indeed with a close friend. And it's to make sure that our taxation system works for everybody, but also that there are clear lines, that there are strict rules, and that obviously they can be clearly followed. Of course, as a government, we've made changes to our inheritance tax system over the last number of years. I appreciate it doesn't apply to the scenarios that you're referencing. We have tried to make sure that where families families are passing on, be it their home, be it their land, be it property that they have, that insofar as possible, as much of that goes directly to their children, to their family, so that they can plan for their future as well, because that's why so many of us invest in what we do. That's why so many of us work. It's to make sure that we can provide for and plan for our family and those closest to us. So obviously what you're suggesting here is that this would go broader than the immediate family unit as been set out. And I think really that's something that we as a Dáil, as colleagues, it's a discussion that can and should be had, but ultimately it's a decision that has to be taken within the budget, within parameters, and obviously that can be done prior to the budget. And I know that, as I said, there's a conversation due to take place in the AV room next week. Thank you.
Minister, this is not a hypothetical or abstract policy debate. This is literally hundreds of thousands of people in this country. On March 19th in the Upper House, Minister O'Donoghue said he would address this, the fundamental points of discrimination. He also made the statement that it seemed to be constitutional, yet he has provided no proof, no legal argument, no documentation has ever been published by this government or previous governments to support that claim. Absolutely none. So I ask the government the following, and I hope you can respond with clarity and commitment on this. Do you believe that the current inheritance tax system is fair and equal in its treatment of childless citizens when comparing those to have children? Has the capital acquisition tax regime, the particular inheritance tax, been reviewed since 1991 to ensure the compliance with the equity status legislation? And will the government publish all documentation and supports that does not infringe the breach of the constitutional rights of the childless citizen? Minister, I have to point out to you, if I leave all my money to the dog's home pays absolutely zero tax. So therefore, the Chihuahua has more rights in this country than the childless citizen, or my niece or my nephew.
Thank you, Deputy. I think our job in this Dáil is to make sure that any of the rules that we adhere to and abide by, any of our taxation measures, that they're as fair as possible. I think that's our job here, to make sure that anything that we put in place, that it's fair and that it's applicable to all citizens. And I think it's about understanding, I suppose, what the potential implications are here, what the measures would need to be taken, what the overall costs would be. The Minister, I believe, has said that this is something that can be discussed or is open to discussing as part of the overall budget conversation, because that's where it has to come from. And I appreciate your point. This is more than a budget conversation or a taxation measure. We're talking about people's lives. And I certainly don't think that a dog's life is worth more, or that should be in a better position than a young person, a niece or a nephew, as you've mentioned. So I think this is about all of us collectively looking at our rules. How do we make them more equitable? How do we make them fair? How do we make them apply equally? But we have to do so within the parameters and the context that are available to us. And as I said, I'm very aware and sure that the Minister is open to doing that.
Like, share, and subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.